We're going to cover the checkbook basics by starting with our login screen. The most important part about Cheqbook, the thing that distinguishes us from everything else, is right here on this front sales page right here. I'm going to slowly move my mouse around it and maybe even make it a little bit bigger so that you can see it. Let's see if that's going to work for me today. Yeah, whoop, there we go. And I'll bring this down. And you'll see it right here to the right of this little thing, right to the right of the video. You're going to see those 5 little icons there in 4 little colors. When I first started this software, it was because I tried all the other ones. And if you're not familiar with what's developed in the accounting world in the last few years, I'll give you sort of a quick history report and then we'll sort of move on from there. About 3 or 4 years ago, accounting software that was the next generation started to show up. It actually connects to your bank, downloads, and automatically categorizes transactions for you. And on the surface, that seems amazing and full of promise, because the most tedious part of accounting is to actually key in all those transactions. But I worked with these early systems. I tried all of them at the time. And in the end, I stopped using them and went back to QuickBooks Pro for the desktop. And even though it was very time-consuming, because I found that despite this great promise, that these systems actually took longer. Now, that doesn't make sense on the surface, but bear with me for just a moment. Imagine you have a deck of cards, and that deck of cards is perfect, and your kid comes along and slides a couple of bad cards in there. How do you have to fix that deck? You have to sort that whole deck out to find, how many queens do you have? Do you have one of each suit? How many nines do you have? Do you have one of each suit? You have to do that whole process, lengthy process, to fix your books. And that's what the earlier versions of online accounting were like. You'd get your books perfect, and then they'd download a whole bunch of more transactions on top of it, and you'd have to sort of start from scratch, reviewing sometimes the same transaction over and over again to see if you've been there before. Well, Cheqbook fixed that, what I think is a fundamental flaw in the way these accounting softwares work, and it uses these icons that are in the right-hand corner here. What happens with those icons is every single transaction we download from a bank, in fact, every transaction in the system, is given an icon. It's either red, yellow, blue, or green. Okay? A red icon is a transaction that we could not categorize at all. A yellow transaction is an icon that we have a vendor and a category for, but for which we do not have, but which is not based on your history. It's sort of based on crowdsourced answers, so it may not be as accurate. But we're finding out that it's actually reasonably accurate. About maybe 70 to 80% of the time it's right. A blue transaction is automatically categorized for you based on your history, the things that it's learned from you as you've categorized things over time. And finally, the green transactions are categorized by a human being, somebody that you've invited to your books or you yourself have actually touched and categorized those transactions. Okay? So if I put the mouse in the middle of those, the ones to the left are all computer done, and the ones to the right are all done by a human being. Now, the green circle is a special type. That's where you've entered a transaction that hasn't cleared the bank yet. When it clears the bank, it actually turns into a green check mark. All right, so I'm going to move on at this point and actually log into the system. And in fact, I'm going to sign in because I think I've already created this one. Nope, hold on, let's do this. Let me try this again. Doug plus 26 at cheqbook.com. I'm going to create a new user right here and right now. Okay. And sign up as we go. Okay, I will agree to the terms of service, and hopefully this is drawing well on your screen. Now at this point in time, let me go pause on this screen for a second, because we're going to go to the demo, which is on the right-hand side, where my mouse is sort of moving around over here. On the left-hand side, the first thing Cheqbook asks you for is to create a company. You don't have to create a company right now. You can go to the demo and sort of play around. But you create a company, you tell it whether you're going to be cash or accrual, and do other things that you need to here. Then you add a bank account, and that actually starts you going. But we're going to go to the demo company, because I'm going to use that data to demonstrate Cheqbook today. And when I click on that button, it takes about a minute or two for the company to create the demo, because it creates the data from scratch and goes from there. Now, the demo company's information covers a 3-month period in 2012. And it's coming together very quickly today. The server in Virginia is very fast. And by the way, we're running this live. We're not running this in any kind of video or anything else. I'm actually running this from our servers and running Meeting Burner software on top of it. So you won't find this quite as immediate as QuickBooks Pro if you're familiar with that industry standard, but we are quite fast, and the other advantages that we give you, I think, more than outweigh it. So when you first log in, the first thing you're going to end up on is a dashboard screen. okay? And in the upper right-hand corner for this particular company, you'll see the company score. Now, we like to call this AccuScore because it gives you an idea of where this company stands at the moment. And as you can see, somebody's come along and categorized 59 transactions. Another 3 have been entered manually. There are 32 transactions that were categorized for this demo company by the system. There were 23 that were based on history, based on this company's history. There were 23 more that were categorized based on other users' history, and there were 8 that couldn't be categorized at all. So we're going to come back to that 8 in just a moment. But let's take a look at what's on this dashboard for just a moment. And you'll see that there's the linked accounts at the top. These are the accounts for which we have an actual physical connection to the bank. And we actually break the score down between them so you can see what's going on. You can see that these were last synced on September of 2012, which makes total sense because this demo data was sort of built from a test account that we had. You can see the balance of Cheqbook. You can open these up and manage them and do other things that you need to do. Underneath that, we also have, under the demo company, we have a list of active users. Cheqbook allows you to invite as many people as you'd like to work with the software at the same time. Gives you a quick recap of your accounts receivable and your accounts payable. And then coming down a little bit more, it gives you a little recap of your income versus expenses and a breakdown of where your expenses are and what they've been paid on. You also have the ability to see the chart of accounts. You see this little button right here that I'm on that says Show. You open that up, it shows you the standard chart of accounts. Excuse me just a moment. Cheqbook works with a standard chart of accounts primarily because the yellow, I call it an engine, but the yellow categorization engine works best when everybody has as similar a chart of accounts as possible. So we have designed a generic chart of accounts that should cover most small businesses, but if it doesn't, it's easy enough to just come over here to this right-hand side button over here and click New Account, and you can add new accounts. I'm going to cancel for now because we're not going to add one at the moment. Okay? Additionally, on this home page over here on the left-hand side, you'll see the buttons that take you to the other section. Accounts takes you to the registers for each of the general ledger or linked accounts that exist. Payees are the people that you pay, like vendors. It's also how you manage the blue auto categorization engine, but again, we'll talk about that in a bit later. Bills are bills that you have to pay that you've entered into the system, and you can also print checks from there. Customers are, of course, the people that make your living, the people that do business with your company, and you have the ability to invoice those customers, and finally you can run reports. And we'll come back and feature these back more in a minute. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go back to what I think is the heart and soul of Cheqbook. And I'm going to come up here to this red icon at the top, which has a number 8 next to it. Now that 8 means that you have 8 red transactions that need your attention, right? And I'm going to click on that icon, and what it'll do is it'll show me all 8 transactions no matter where they came from, whether they were paid by credit card or cash account or anything else like that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this description. It's PCC 9145, and I'm going to go, oh wait, I know what that is. That is actually PCC Auto, and I'm going to type in the vendor name. I'm going to tab over, and I'm going to categorize that, and then I'm going to hit Enter. Okay? So what you'll see happens on the screen is that transaction, because I've physically been there, has turned green, and we've actually categorized it and taken care of it. But additionally, you saw the other 7 that matched that transaction were categorized for you. So the system came along and said, oh, I now have this new vendor called PCC Auto. I know it's supposed to be auto and truck loans. It looked for other ones that were just like it, and it categorized those transactions for us. So that saved us that step right there. Okay? So the system learns as it goes. Now, the next thing that you can do, we're going to go over here to a second, and then we're going to categorize. Let's see, I can go in 2 directions here. Let's go to the payees. Let me show you what just happened. I'm going to click on Payees, and you'll see there's some generic payees in here that were part of this demo data. I'm going to click on P, okay, and we're going to find that payee, PCC Auto. I'll click over here on the Edit button, and I will edit that client. And what you will see is that when you open this up, you'll see a normal screen for a typical payee or vendor, just like you'd see in QuickBooks or some other accounting software. But there's something right at the top underneath their name, which is default category. We set the default category for PCC Auto to automobile and truck loans, okay? And if you, at any time, you can now change that. In fact, we got this one wrong. I purposely always get this one wrong. I'm going to make this auto, gas, and fuel instead, okay? Now I'm going to change it here. which will change when anything else comes in for PCC Auto. It will get categorized instead to Auto, Gas, and Fuel, but I'm going to save it right now. I'm going to click Save right now. And it also does something special for us here. It actually offers up every other transaction that's previously been categorized using these rules and give you a chance to change them all. So this is the same 8 transactions we looked at before. I'm going to click the All button, and it's going to select them all, and now I'm going to click the Confirm button. And what will happen is those transactions have now been recategorized to Auto, Gas, and Fuel instead of being auto loans, which is incorrect. Okay. So now we've sort of covered the red categories, and we've also covered the blue categories. Not in fully, but we have covered it to a great deal. Let's go take a look at some yellow ones for a second so you get an idea of how that works. I'm going to click on the yellow icon. Now the yellow icon ones are nice because we have both a vendor and an expense category for you already. So let's take a look at this first one. This first one is Google Apps, and the expense category is computer and internet expenses. If you're okay with that, you don't have to touch it. You move your mouse over to the icon to the right, and you just click on that yellow icon. The icon turns green. If you scroll down for a second, you'll see it found another transaction with Google Apps, and it categorized that one as well. If you were to go back to the payees, you would see that it's now created a payee for Google Apps that you can edit or manage very easily. And so in the future, when Google Apps comes through, it'll be blue instead of yellow. And if you like what's going on, we can come to the next one, which is Amazon Web Services. And Amazon Web Services is not supplies. It actually should be computer and internet expenses. Okay? So I'm going to go in and type a portion of the name. I just need to type a portion of the name for it to come up. And it can also be the second word. In fact, this is a good thing to cover for a second. I'm going to type a portion of the name. Let me type internet. Okay? You'll notice that if you're familiar, if any of you are very experienced with QuickBooks, you'll notice that you have to know the first few letters of the name of the account, or it simply doesn't work. Well, that's old stuff. They should have fixed that a long time ago. You can see with us, if you know any portion of the name, in this case I started to type internet, and you can see those first 5 letters intern that are highlighted in dark black on your screen, you can pull up the name that you're looking for. So it makes it a lot easier to find the category names if you need to. Additionally, if you're struggling with that, you can also, I'm going to delete that for a second, actually you can pull a down arrow key and you can look them up from a broad list if, for instance, you just don't know which one it would be. But I'm going to take computer and internet expenses and I'm going to change it. So just like before, it created a new vendor or a new payee for me called Amazon Web Services. Instead of calling it supplies, it calls it computer and internet expenses, and it now has learned from us and will get it right. It found another one down below that was correct. Now to work the yellows, oftentimes it goes very quickly. So interest charge, bank, and service charges, that one's correct. I'll click the yellow icon. Panda Express was meals and entertainment. That's correct. I'll click the yellow icon. Dropbox is a computer and internet expense. I'll click the yellow icon. Okay. Amazon.com versus Amazon Web Services. Well, this is supplies, so that one's okay. I'll click that one. The Rackspace Cloud is computer and internet expenses. I'll click that one. Amazon.com was supplies. We'll click that one. Chargeify. Oh, Chargeify is actually a merchant fee. So I'm going to start to type merchant fee. You'll notice I get a portion of it. I'll click enter. And you'll see that we had, when we started, we had 8 red transactions and 23 yellow transactions. And there is still one more yellow transaction out there. I think it's on the second page. Let's find that one. Pizza Hut, meals and entertainment. That one's good as well. Okay. So we have now categorized 31 transactions, and I was talking the whole time and actually taking my time about it, but we did it in a relatively short period of time, a minute or two. Instead of having to spend, a half an hour or 15 or 20 minutes keying in 30 transactions, here they are done, ready to go. Additionally, the system is now smarter. You've trained it what to do with another 5 or 6 vendors. So the next time those vendors come in or clear the bank, the system will know what to do with them and will be able to categorize them for you in the first place. Okay? So this is a good time to ask questions. I'm just going to move on to something else in a minute. And I'll remind any of you that are interested that there's an Ask a Question button in the upper right-hand corner of the upper left-hand corner of your screen. There is a Q and it says Ask a Question there if you have any questions. And I can pop in and cover anything that you need to cover. All right? So it's about 10:20 right now. I'm going to move on and watch for questions, but I'll keep an eye for questions, and we're going to move on to some other stuff here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the account screen. The thing that I like about, and I'm going to dismiss the tour of the general ledger because I'm going to walk you through it personally myself, but the thing that I like about this particular, about the way we structure this is it looks just like a check register. We like to, one of the greatest features of Quicken, which was the predecessor to QuickBooks and QuickBooks itself, is that it works in a check register format. People are familiar with the check register format, and it works just that same way. So you can see right now, essentially the check register for American Bank checking is sitting in front of you. It's got a balance forward at the top of $30,430.78, and then it keeps a running balance as you go, and it also tells you the status of these transactions. So if you're comfortable with them, you're good to go. You also have 3 checks that haven't cleared yet, one from Office Max, one from Home World Furniture, and one from Business Solutions Magazine. Okay? You also have the ability to, so let's talk about navigation for a minute. One of the critical things when you're dealing with cloud-based software that's different from QuickBooks is that QuickBooks has all your data right there. Again, our data is sitting on a server in Virginia, but we still needed to give you a means of moving very quickly and bouncing around very quickly. So we're going to talk you through how the navigation works at the top here when you're in a register. The first thing that you'll see are these date ranges here. The date range that's on the screen, which in this case is 9/1/2012 to 9/30/2012, shows you the date range that's on the screen. Okay? You can make it go earlier if you want to by clicking the earlier button, and you'll notice that the go button on the right-hand side here lights up. If the go button lights up, then it isn't those dates. It's encouraging you to click the go button. When I do click the go button, I now get 8/1 to 9/30, and I can see those transactions and work with them. Okay? You also have the ability to filter. So if you only wanted to see the uncleared ones, you could see just the uncleared ones. Okay? Or you could go back to showing all of them again, depending on what you wanted to do. You can also search for things. So if I wanted to search for Chase, I could click Chase and do a search, and it would do the search and give me the Chase numbers. I could also decide to search for an amount, like 99 cents. Okay, and I would click Go, and anything, let's actually clear that for a second. I'll look for something that's specific. I need to find a specific amount. There's one for $7.95. If I put 7.95 in and I click Go, you'll see that those transactions show up on your screen as those are the ones we're looking for. And again, I'll clear that because we don't necessarily need to work with it. I'm just showing you how it works. Now that's a pretty typical screen. You would see those types of things on most of our competitors in order to move around and navigate the register. But we did something even extra special. I use this software myself. I run my CPA firm with it. I keep the books for this startup company in Cheqbook. And so we got a lot of first-hand use. We built this embedded inside of a CPA firm, and so we got a lot of criticism right away that it takes a while to bounce around because of the transactions. So we created this quick jump feature. And I'm going to point out right here where my mouse is right here. You'll notice there's a very thin separation between those two things. What happens is these 4 buttons on the left control what these buttons on the right do. Let me show you. Right now it says last 12 months. So you'll notice that these go from May of 13 back through June of 12. So it's a very common, the most requested scenario. I can look at April of 13, and there's not going to be any data there, but I can look at April of 13 quickly. I can go to August of 12 very quickly. I can bounce around quickly. The other button is if I click the current year button over here on the left, it now changes from January of 13 to December of 13. If I click the prior year, I get January of 12 to December of 12 on these quick jump buttons. If I click periods, I get all current year, prior year, current quarter. So if I click the prior year button, I will get all the transactions from 1/1/2012 to 12/31/2012 in my register. They come up very quickly. So without a lot of trouble and hassle or having to type, a date range in up here, which by the way you can do besides also using this thing, you can quickly pick the date range that you want and have it show up on your screen. Okay? Additionally, again, mentioning this, I'm not sure if I covered this before, but the linked accounts up here, these accounts that sit up at the top are the accounts for which we have a connection to the bank. You can enter transactions here at any time, manually as well. In fact, let's do that for a second. Sometimes checking accounts have a very, very sparse, or you're trying to manage the money carefully. So let's say we had a transaction here on 9/5, and it's check number 34 60, and let's say it's to, we'll create a new pay, Levin and Who, and this is for professional services, and I'm going to make it $10,000, okay? I'll save that transaction. So you can see that I've now entered a transaction that hasn't cleared the bank yet. That's why it has a green circle. When it clears the bank, the system will use the amount and the check number and other things to match those two transactions together and create a green check mark. So you have the ability to keep a running total of your checking account balance even before you're waiting for transactions to clear the bank, depending on how you work. Now the truth is that business owners come in a variety of different sizes. I've seen a lot of different scores. The very particular business owners, everything is green. The less particular ones, they have a handful of reds because they haven't gotten there yet. They have yellows and blues that are okay, and they're like, okay, we're good. And they kind of wait for things to come in. The more particular ones tend to put transactions in so they know exactly what their account balance is. What's great about Cheqbook is it works with both types of personalities at either end. It fulfills your needs and saves you time no matter what you're doing. Okay? So this is the dashboard. Let's see. Let's go through a few other things here. Additionally, we have a chart of accounts. If you've worked with some of our competitors, you'll find that they don't have a balance sheet, which I sort of laugh at. I don't understand that. But there are some very good ones out there, though. So when you find the good ones, they will always have a balance sheet. And, of course, we do as well. We have cash and equivalents, current assets, fixed assets, other assets. And as you can see, as I click on these things, you can see the accounts that are there. Okay? Additionally, you can come down here into expenses. And let's take a look at something like auto and truck expenses. Okay? We actually have registers for those as well. So when you click on that account, you can come into this register. You can even edit a company in this particular section. So like, for instance, I'm going to come in and edit this transaction. Now the offset is, accounting is double entry, so this can be a little bit tricky for the non-accountant. But the account that we're in right now at the top is auto and truck expenses. The offset was that these came from the credit card. So I'm actually going to click this down arrow button here, which allows you to split the transaction. And I'm going to show you a few things, okay? The first thing is on the left-hand side over here is the original bank data. Whatever you eventually date this, whatever description you give it, whatever vendor you give it, the original data that we got from the bank will always be here waiting for you. It can't be changed. So if somebody completely goofs this transaction up, you can hit the down arrow button and see the original data. But we're going to decide that this isn't really auto and truck expenses. We're going to call this auto, gas, and fuel. Okay? I can also, and in fact, that was for only, what is that? That's $34. I'm going to make it $29, or actually I'll make it $30 because it's a nice even thing. And I'm also going to add an item. I'm going to make this meals and entertainment. I'm going to make it $4. You can see how I'm splitting this, and I can call this a sandwich or something. Okay? I can put memos in here. This was gas. And then I can save this transaction. Okay? Now notice that we're in auto and truck expenses right now. I'm going to be recategorizing this transaction out of auto and truck expenses. It's going to go to auto, gas, and fuel, and meals and entertainment. I'm also splitting the transaction. I'm going to click save right now. Watch what happens. Okay? It's going to save, and then you're going to watch that transaction disappear and go away. Now I don't know how fast Meeting Burner draws your screen, but on my screen, I see it, it sits there, it pauses for a moment, and then it goes away because it's now moved to some other place. If I come over here to the expenses, and I go to auto, excuse me just a moment, auto, gas, oops, why is it being funky for me today? Auto, gas, and fuel. You'll see that that transaction for $30, which is now split, moved over here. Okay? So we work just like a regular accounting in terms of the ability to split transactions and recategorize and work in a register. All right, so moving on, let's go back to payees for a minute. I want to cover a few things over here, keeping track of the time. We covered payees here for a second, but one of the things that is useful to know is what blue mapping is. Blue mapping is how we map things to a vendor. Okay? When you work with a company, and I'm going to click the blue mapping for American Express, we get descriptions. We get descriptions from the bank for this particular transaction. And when you categorize that transaction to American Express, we remember that that description, which in this case was American Express Collection Demo Company, was mapped to American Express. If for some reason you map a description to the wrong vendor, all is not lost. You can unmap it, and you will get the same options you got when you were recategorizing a payee to move any prior transactions to the new payee vendor. We're not going to do that now. I'm just sort of teaching you how a little bit more about how the Blue Engine works. So the best way to think of the Blue Engine is it actually works on two sides. On one side, you map descriptions to payees. On the other side, you map that payee to a standard and default category. And that allows you to manage that Blue Engine, and over time, with a little bit of training, it learns from you as you categorize, and if you should goof something up, you have the means to be able to fix the errors that you make as you work. Okay? So that's more about the Blue Engine. I'm going to go into bills for a second. Okay? Bills is where you can pay and print checks for bills. All right, so in this case, I'll take a look at Jane Doe. Let's view this bill here for a second from Jane Doe. This is a bill for a classified ad. It was categorized to advertising and promotion. Okay? Just showing you that we put a bill into the system. I'm going to click Done. I'm also going to pay some bills. So I'm going to pay Jane, and I'm going to pay Joe the plumber, and I'm going to click Pay Bill. Okay? I'm going to print a check. Nice thing about us is that we can print checks for you. All right? And we're going to say we're going to print it from American Bank Checking. That's fine. The starting check number will be 3462. If for some reason that check number gets out of whack, you can check it. And we're going to print with a layout called Voucher on top. And we're going to save and download a PDF. So I'm going to click Save. Okay? Now the first thing it's going to do is go, did the checks print correctly? And I don't want you to jump at this because down here in the corner, depending on what browser you have, is the item. So we're going to open that up. Okay? Now here is the check in a standard check format, ready to be printed on QuickBooks Check Stock. So you can print this one, and we'll go to page 2, so you can see that there's Jane Doe getting paid. So this is a check at the top with a 2-voucher standard check. You print it there. One of the things to cover with people, because we're noticing that they're having trouble, is this. I'm going to show the print to screen for a second, because I don't want you guys to have the same challenge when you start to print checks. You will see under this sizing option here, when you actually print them, always make sure it's actual size. We see a lot of people clicking fit, and then it doesn't line up right. Make sure it says actual size, and you'll be able to print correctly. I'm going to hit cancel here because we're not actually going to print these checks from here. But when you put the check stock in the printer, you print from here, and you're good to go. Now, I'm going to click this that yes, save the payment, or no, there was a problem. I'm going to click no, there was a problem, because I like to come back and reuse demos, and this will be handy for me later. So I'm going to click no, there was a problem. But had we printed those checks correctly, you would have been able to record those checks, and they would have shown up as being paid. Okay, so let's move on to customers. Customers is where you can see and list your customers and edit them and see what's going on. Of course, you have information for them, notes for them, and other things that you go. And then you also have the ability to create invoices for those customers. I'm going to click on the invoice icon, which I just did over here on the left-hand side. Invoicing gives you the ability to send invoices to your clients. So let's take a look at this invoice for Zoe Clayton. Okay. It has, this is the draft, this is the quick and dirty HTML screen that lets you see what it looks like quickly so you can check spelling and things like that. You can also actually see the invoice if you want to by clicking the PDF, and this works just like the other one did, where sort of like the other one. You can see this is the invoice that will actually get sent, right? And I'm going to go back because we're not going to send this one right now. You can print that one to mail it. You can also email it to them. So the cool thing about the email one is that we can tell when they open it. So we'll be able to say it was sent, and when they open it, you'll be able to know that they actually viewed the email, which is kind of cool. But you can send it to people like Doug at Cheqbook.com, and they will actually send the invoice that you're seeing here to them or whoever you need them to, and that invoice has now been sent out. You also have the ability to edit the invoice, and we'll take a look at that real quick. Invoicing works like a lot of other things. You can put subject at the top, the number of the invoice, the issue date, the due date, who your customer is. You can create new customers on the fly, what the status is as you go. You can also create new types of items that you're selling. Okay, so like if you wanted to create professional fees, we're just going to create something. This could be sales, could be the category, and you've got a gross, and you've got the description, fees by the hour. I'm not spelling it right, but I'm not going to kill it right now. Actually, I'll save it. And then the price could be like, say, $100 an hour. We can save the item. Right? Now, as you work, we change the professional fees 20 hours to do that. If it's taxable, you can click the taxable item. You can also pick the tax rate that you want to apply to it, and it applies the tax. You can save in new, and go to a new one, or you can cancel the changes that I've made. So you have the ability to invoice your clients and get paid from your clients as well. Okay. Finally, of course, we have reporting. which gives you the standard report that you would typically expect for a small business. For instance, a profit and loss is a very common report. I'm going to click periods. You notice that we use some of the same designs all throughout the software. I'm going to click periods here, and I'm going to go prior year. Then I'm going to click generate the report, and it will give me a P&L for last year. And as you can see, it does all the things you would expect a P&L to do. And the blue ones, of course, you can click on if you want to, and it'll give you the detail for that particular account, what got that account to that particular value. You can edit things there if you want to. Additionally, you can also subtotal. I'm going to do a subtotal by month, so you can sort of see how the company did. And of course, this company only has 3 months worth of data, which I mentioned before. It's July, August, and September of last year, the second quarter of last year. But you can see these transactions. You can click on data and do the other things that you need to run reports. The other reports that you need are all here, from balance sheet, just a moment, balance sheet, general ledgers, trial balances. You also have the ability to download them as Excel files, download them as CSV files, or download them as PDF files. Okay? So those are the core parts of the software so far. Let's go a couple more things that are going to be helpful for you as users, because this is a basic setup and we move very quickly through stuff. I'm going to come over here to this screen which says Demo Company, and you'll see 3 items over here. One is the company settings. Okay? Under company settings, the first thing that you'll see is this ability to track personal expenses. Many small businesses share a business or a personal account together where they're using a lot of personal expenses and mixing them with their business expenses. If you're one of these small businesses that do that, no problem for Cheqbook. Just click Yes, I track personal expenses, and it will turn on a whole series of personal expense categories for you in addition to the business expense categories, and give you a little personal P&L underneath your business P&L. You also have the ability to keep track your books on both a cash and an accrual basis. Here, as you'll see, is this generic information. You can also upload company logo files to appear on your invoices and other items. And let's see what else is here. And then you can save those changes as you go. Okay? Coming up here to Demo Company again, a couple of other things that I want to cover. Going back up to Company Settings is, I guess it's Demo Company. All right. And then we'll go to Sharing Settings for a second. Okay? Sharing settings are important because you can invite people to access your books. One of the important things about accounting software is that it's collaborative. It isn't just the business owner who uses it, it's their spouse, it's their staff who need to see things, it's their accountant and or bookkeeper or tax preparer needs to see this stuff. You can very easily invite people to see your books and set the level of authority you want them to have, and then they show up here. Now, this person has already been, if they're not already active in Cheqbook, they get an invitation and it says pending here. In this case, the person I invited is active, and the status just sits there, and the status will say pending. When they actually connect, you'll know when they've connected. If for some reason you don't like working with them anymore, you can actually click them out and remove them, and they no longer have access to your set of books. Okay? You can also create new companies here and go from there. Now we're going to come over to the one on the right because we are starting to run out of time here. Over here are these settings for you as an individual. You have account settings, which are basically your subscriptions. Let's take a look for a second. How you work with Cheqbook. And we'll give this a second to start off here. What country, what time zone you're in. In fact, I'll fix that because we're actually in Hawaii here. Where did that go? There it is, right there. So I'll pick Hawaii and click Save. Okay. So you have account settings there. You also have the ability to change your password, manage your subscriptions, which is how many companies that you have and the fees that you pay us for the service. Firm details has to do with those who are accountants. Inviting friends, you can invite friends and invite them to free 90 days, and you also get a free 90 days yourself. There's a referral program that's also available. The demo company is available here if you ever want to come in and play around with your demo company. You can also manage the companies that you have, including the ability to archive your companies. And this is also a very helpful thing to remember. This help forum is we use a third party for this called Zendesk, but we manage this and keep track. Many of the questions that you're going to have are often going to be answered here. And if you have a question, you might want to start here first because you might get a faster answer than waiting for us to get back to you. We're fast, but we're not immediate. You might find your answers here. And you can look through these things and see whether or not we've answered one of the questions that come up. If, in fact, you reach out to us and you ask what we think is going to be a very common question, oftentimes we wait a day or two to get back to you and we write a very nice FAQ. And then we send you a link to the FAQ, so in the future when other people ask that question, we have options and things for you. This is also a place for you to submit a request. So for instance, if there's something wrong with the software, if it's not working, or if you need some support issue, you can submit that here and we can help you with that. Okay? So let's see. It is about 10:40 right now. We have covered an awful lot of stuff here. I'm going to click Cheqbook icon here for a minute and go back to the demo company. I've covered an awful lot of stuff here. Let's see, is there anything else I really should cover today? I don't know, I think we did good. I think we had a pretty good pace today. Are there any questions at this point? You can either ask in chat or that meeting room, and I do.